Okay, butterflies, we are back once again, and this episode is extra special to me. This is the second annual Fibromyalgia Roundtable in honor of Fibromyalgia Awareness Day, which is May 12th. But much like I celebrate my birthday, I'm going to celebrate it all month. So that's just how we roll around here. Um, this episode is specifically a discussion featuring some amazing providers and advocates in chronic pain and who also have chronic illnesses themselves or have a knowledge set in chronic illness. We're going to bring some awareness to their journeys, and maybe their journeys are similar to yours. And we're also, which is the most important part, celebrating each of our strengths. And so today we have some incredible guests, and I'm going to start with Jania. Will you introduce yourself and tell us who you are?
Sure. My name is Janina Hamilton, and I have a coaching business. I call myself the habits-driven goal coach. That way, we can establish habits that are easy to help you to reach your goals. We don't want to think that we have to jump from A to Z. A to B is enough. And so everything can grow exponentially. Right now, my niche is work from home women, which tend to be also women that have chronic illnesses, just because it is easier for them. It makes it simpler for them, not easier, but simpler for them to be able to work and help provide for themselves, provide for their families. Most of them also have businesses. So they like to run themselves into the ground. And so we take a step back and make sure that they are taking care of themselves first, with little habits like drinking water first thing in the morning, taking a daily intentional walk, so that when they do take care of themselves first, then they can take care of their jobs without feeling burnout.
I love that. Absolutely. I have been in several of your other workshops, and the goal setting one was very close to life changing, and it was very simple. Like, because I am the queen of making things bigger than they have to be, so it's like it doesn't have to be a grand gesture, and you can still get progress. So I can definitely attest. So Jen, let people know who you are.
Yes, I would first like to say I love that, Janaea, because we just met.
Oh,
And
yes, thank you.
we know that if we do the fancy math, if we get a 1% improvement every day, that's 3,700% over the course of a year. And so we can all strive for 1%. So thank you for that, Janaea. I am Jen Ushold, and I refer to myself as the pain shifter because it is my mission to help people understand, embrace, and experience that pain is not a life sentence. I am coming at this from the perspective of a physical therapist, a fellow of pain science, and integrating mental fitness or positive intelligence coaching. So that's me in a very small nutshell.
Love that.
So, and for those of you who may or may not know me, I am Latoya. I am a chronic pain educator and a health educator, also a social wellness consultant. I have also I have had chronic illness for about 11 years now. Sounds crazy to say that. And this mission is a mission I never would have chosen. I don't think any of us would have chosen it. But I have found myself being at the most peace once I um, leaned into my current situation and have come across some amazing women. So we're gonna start off with um, basic questions. So first off, if you don't know, what is fibromyalgia? Fibromyalgia is basically a widespread pain condition. Me personally, I consider it a trash can diagnosis. It's one of those things that they diagnose you with when they're tired of looking for something else. Just my personal opinion. But it is a very real disease, and it can very much affect everyone's who life. Oh, sorry, it can very much affect your life and differently. Every person is affected differently. So don't let anybody tell you that it's not real, because it is. So one of the first questions I want to dive into, um, tell can uh, tell me what pain or chronic pain has um, have has formed your life into. Um, Janaea, we can start with you. Like, how has chronic pain affected your life?
Yeah, so I went from spending like having a job where I worked 1 to 5. I worked a part-time job because I spent my other time in a public ministry, and that was important to me. Like that's what I did. And I got my diagnosis, I think, a couple of years after I started doing that, and then I could no longer work. Like it just went from like I can't do this. I can't like or either that or all I was doing was going to work. Like I slept
Mhm.
all day and I didn't so because like I said, I worked from 1 to 5. And so I would sleep until 11:30 or stay in bed until 11:30, take a shower, go to work and come back. So what kind of quality of life was that? Just because there was nothing else that I could do. Thankfully, my boss did allow me to rearrange my schedule so I didn't have to quit my job at that point. But that was the life changing thing that happened was work just like it either was the only thing I was doing or I was doing nothing at all. And that was not how I wanted to live my
Mhm.
life. And eventually, once I did have, take some time to step back and figure out how I could live with it and things that I could change to do to make me feel better. And then I got married. And when I got married, it, life, stress, that's what happens. And then everything went backwards. So, there's just a, a thing that happens where life just changes. It just turns
Mhm.
everything upside down. And all you can do is think about how am I going to make myself feel better? Or um, why do I feel so bad? So those
Right.
two things just get kind of mixed in there. And then you have to make a decision as to what you're going to do about that and when. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, what, I mean, what was that conversation in your head? Like, when you first, got diagnosed and now you're trying to adjust to a life that you never really wanted. What was that conversation?
Oh, that's a really good question. I have no idea. It was so long ago. I like now it was just like I knew that I I knew things were going to be different. I
Mm-hmm.
just knew that they were. And I think I had a couple of conversations, like not just with myself, because I was living at home with my parents still.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a conversation with my dad, and he was like, look, you got to, the first thing you need to do is get your stress under control. Because I
Mm.
worked at a law office.
Ah.
So I guess the first conversation then that I had with myself was not to keep it to myself,
Mm.
was to talk to somebody. I guess that's what it would be.
Mm.
Um, Somebody that I trusted to see what outside of a doctor that was going to say,
Mm-hmm.
here's some medication that I could do to make things better.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I definitely get that, and it's funny how that is for the people, just other people I've talked to. That is one of the first things they say. Control your stress.
Hmm.
Sure. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, as if it's just as simple as that.
Hmm.
And it makes things harder.
Yeah.
So, Jen, what would you add to that? Like, I mean, I know, like, you are a practitioner to helps with pain and whatnot, but how would you add to that? Like, or what would you suggest someone do to kind of help go from normal to living a pain life?
To go from normal to living a pain life, or a pain life back to normal?
Let's do both. Let's do both, because I think at some point they both those switches have to be made.
Yeah. Yeah. So the science tells us that stress is a huge contributor to pain. And we've even broken it down more into what we call yellow flags. The researcher's name is Kendall. And if we look at pain as your nervous system as a very high tech alarm, we can spend as little or as much time as you want. But for most of us, we want our alarm to go off if somebody throws a brick through our front window. But if the sensitivity of our alarm gets so elevated that a leaf hitting the window sets off our house alarm, our nervous system body alarm, then we have too much sensitivity. And so we know that our body and our environment are giving inputs, and the brain is processing literally 11 million pieces of information every second. Its job is to protect you. And sometimes it does it too well. So when you said, Latoya, that it is real, all pain is real. All pain is real. We have never scanned fake pain. And all pain also has both an emotional and a physical component. And so the yellow flags are ongoing pain, fear of fill in the blank, financial stress. People spend a lot of money trying to overcome pain, unnecessary surgeries, different explanations, doctors telling you crazy things, telling you it's all in your head. All of these things can actually raise the sensitivity of your nervous system. And so to get back to your original question is, it all starts with knowledge. We need to understand how pain works in order to do something about the pain we have. It is no different than if we want to become a triathlete, we need to understand what it means to ride a bike and to swim, etc. And so the knowledge is that starting point. And we also know the more we learn, the evidence is starting to emerge that these garbage can diagnoses, it's I want to believe that clinicians are doing their best, but when they don't know, then they start to feel their own shame or guilt. And unfortunately, they project it onto their clients. We are now learning that the diagnosis of fibromyalgia can often be a hypersensitivity of your immune system. Your immune system is doing its job too well. Things like chronic fatigue or post-exertional malaise, your endocrine system is doing its job too well. And the same can be true for non-celiac gastrointestinal things. And so I'm going to answer your question with one word: education. Understanding either how you got here or understanding enough to know how you can get out.
I mean, and I love that. I love that. I mean, because it is really just that simple, and I think a lot of people get stuck in that shame part where, well, I used to be able to do X, Y, and Z, but now I can't do X, Y, and Z, and there's not really an explanation. So people think I am this or that, and it's an outside influence that is just kind of distracting you from the fact that you need to deal with you. You need to figure out how you got here, what's the treatment plan, how can I manage it, and then how can I move on? But a lot of people don't really get to that move on part, because it is very shameful. And the thing is, probably at this point, 14 years ago, when my first medical emergency came up, my doctor told me then I would never work again. I was a pastry chef. Had just landed my first job, my first real actual like pastry, like paying using my degree, and I was like, "What you want me if you don't give me a pill or get some scissors and cut this mess out and leave me alone now?" And she's like, "You won't be able to ever do that again." And I was so hard headed. I did not want to believe it. She was right. But and people get stuck in that trying to get back to their old life. And even now I find myself sometimes saying, I wish I could do what I did then. But I have to catch myself. Like, you know what? You're not going to do that.
Right.
That's not going to happen to you. But you can do this instead,
Hmm.
and it takes a lot, at least I feel it does, to get to that point.
Yeah.
To just understand that it's not your fault and not like you did anything, but it is in fact life, you know.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
Um,
how we get into any particular situation, there are variables that we did have some role in, and then there are lots of variables that we didn't, and we always get to choose what we want to do to get out. And
right.
Right.
so there are a lot of people with chronic pain that find their way to 50% better function, 75% better function, and having, and another phrase we have is despite the pain I can. So
Mm,
if you're going to have a certain level of pain and you can barely get out of bed, what would you think if you had that same level of pain, but you could be a pastry chef 3 hours a day? And
mhm,
so it's in those things that they actually can start to have more and more and more function. And we
Yeah.
call it graded exposure. So starting with a little and then building and building upon that success.
Yeah. And I find that like I appreciated what my dad said because it gave me a place to start.
mm,
Like it was just a place to start. And sometimes not being able to zoom out from the pain can cloud what you're doing to even start in doing something different and
mhm,
accepting that maybe you won't be back where you started pre-pain, but you can do something different.
mhm.
So
Yeah.
for you, Janina, when your dad said, get your stress in order, that was enough of a stop
Hmm.
and dive a little deeper, which is
Yeah.
great, right? That's what you needed. Somebody else, maybe that approach wouldn't work, but I love that you took that information from your dad and you're like, what's behind this? And that was a starting point for you. I love that.
Yeah, and I think for that process to work out, you yourself have to be in some way or shape or form ready to dive in.
Hmm. Oh yeah, I was
Because
done already.
yeah, see, I mean, and because there's so much involved with realizing I will always, on some level, be in pain.
Hmm.
Why? like that's not something they teach in nursery school. They don't teach us that. So you really have to be in a place where you're ready. And if you're not in that place right now, that's okay. It's fine. I mean, because every day is a new day. Take another step, and we can all move forward to get to where we need to get to.
Yep.
Um, so I want to ask. We kind of talked about this already a little bit. Um, just about like the emotional up and downs from, okay, cool, you're at acceptance, this is your life, I'm gonna figure out a way to move forward, but then you have a flare up or something happens to where the mental is very much so under attack. So like, Janaea, like, how do you know give yourself the positive self-talk when those hard days come?
Well, I've had a lot of practice. I mean, and that I guess to the point is it does take practice to
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
be able to get there, um, and just in starting with boundaries before the flares.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even like for me and business, not allowing somebody to set an appointment the next day. Like I don't do that. It has to be at least 3 days out. No
Mm-hmm.
one can set an appointment on Saturday and it's going to be on Monday. I can't do, I'm not doing that. Allowing myself to do that, as well as letting people know up front when
Mm-hmm.
they do schedule an appointment with me that I have an illness,
Mm-hmm.
and that just like I will allow them to reschedule, that there may be um, a day that I wake up and I don't feel well and I may need to reschedule. So just being very upfront with the people that are around me with that I have bad days and that it's okay that they have a bad day as well. Like they might wake up with a cold. Well, I might wake up with the, with a flare, and just allowing myself to be comfortable with the fact that that day may come, that I might have to send them a message and say, "Hey, I can't do this today. Can we please reschedule?"
Mm-hmm.
But being upfront with them makes that happen so much smoother.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Stop pretending that it's not there. Like, don't pretend that it's not there. Otherwise, it makes you seem unreliable.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to just let them know that there's a possibility. And then if it doesn't happen that way, then it doesn't happen that way. But they
Right.
know that if it does, you're not just blowing them off.
Mm-hmm. And you said the buzzword boundaries. It's like, were you always okay with setting boundaries, or did you have to work on that?
No, I've always been that person.
Because I was thinking, like, when she works in the lawyer's office, I'm pretty sure she's pretty firm on that. But I'm going to ask anyway.
I have always been that person. But I think though, when it did come to um, being dependable, I was a very dependable person, and so
Mm-hmm.
that portion of it made me feel like I was no longer reliable or dependable. That if I needed to reschedule, and so that I did have a little bit of a struggle in the beginning with putting that out there, that was something that may happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't set that boundary initially, especially when I started my business. Um, so that did have to come with practice and letting everybody know that was the case. But no, I mean, in general, I am a person that's like, no.
Yeah, I mean, and it's good. I mean, that's good. We need people like you because because me, a recovering people pleaser, it was a struggle. But I quickly learned that not setting boundaries and pushing through and ignoring the fact that I'm having tremors and I can't sit up straight. I mean, like, just whatever weird things happen, trying to ignore it, for one, it rarely, if ever, really works out. And like, you're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna again look like you have no idea what you're talking about, what you're doing, or that you're even saying. And you're gonna end up having to do something over again, which is more time. I mean, it snowballs. And so being um kind really to yourself and acknowledge the fact that, what, this is not what I want. I have all the intentions, but for the quality of your word, your brand, your thing, and for the other person, just be like, listen, here's what's happening. And again, if they have an issue with rescheduling, maybe that wasn't a thing for you anyway. But it's like, either way, what I'm saying? So I've definitely gotten better at being like, what, I need my oxygen mask on first. So let's make everybody else's thing happy by me breathing first. Jen, do you have anything to add to that, or?
Yeah, I appreciate that both of you are bringing up this idea of self-compassion and boundaries. And when we don't have those boundaries, in my world, we call it a boom and a bust. You go, 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 and then you crash. And then you go, 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 and then you crash. This works for weekend warriors, but it doesn't work for a sensitized nervous system. And both of you already know the outcome when you push through is it might take a day to recover, and then it might take 3 days. And so that just keeps getting worse and worse. So pacing and nudging, my other favorite word, are really two of the best strategies for helping people increase their function without a flare during chronic pain. And the idea of, Janaea, compassion for yourself as well as the other person. This is the work of mental fitness or positive intelligence. How do we show up for ourselves, which influences how we are for others around us? And my one sentence summary is, how do we harness our brain to be our best friend rather than our worst enemy? You're having a flare day. Are you beating yourself up, or are you recognizing this is a flare, these are my strategies, this is how I get out? So I appreciate that both of you brought that up.
Awesome. So Jen, can you speak a little bit more about the mental fitness that you're talking about.
Yeah, I am about 3 years into mental fitness. And to me, the merging of mental fitness with pain science, to me, I describe it as like stitching on a quilt. I've learned a lot of cool things in my 30 years as a PT, but I feel like the mental fitness is bringing it all together. And in very brief, we have 10 saboteur type characters, and they live broadly in the left side of our brain, and that is our survival brain. And then on the right side, this is where this is our thriving brain. We have our 5 sage powers. And our first one is empathy, which both of you already spoke about. But then we have explore, activate, navigate, and innovate. Then on this side, there's actually a free assessment I could send for your listeners if you want. We have 10 saboteurs, and they show up differently. We've spoken about them. We have the avoider, controller, hyperachiever, hypervigilant, hyperrational, pleaser, recovering pleaser, stickler, restless, and victim. And they all show up in a unique way for people experiencing chronic pain. But one of my favorite parts about mental fitness is that your strongest saboteurs actually represent your greatest strengths gone overboard. Your nervous system, chronic pain, it's doing its job too well. So when you said you're a recovering pleaser, it's likely you have a stronger pleaser saboteur. But the gift there is your ability to connect with people and be present. And we want to shift it so it's more from the right-sided structures and not the left.
Exactly, and
That's cool.
it takes work. It takes work,
Yeah.
but it is very helpful once you get a handle on that.
Mhm.
So let's switch over just a little bit and talk about the intersection between chronic pain and like the acceptance of chronic pain and mental health or just mental wellness, and how that shows up, like just in day-to-day lives. Whoever wants to go first can go first.
People with chronic pain and mental health challenges are often overlooked because you can't see it.
Mm.
And you two can speak to this much better than I. So I'm just going to punt it to you. What's it like to not be believed by those who are closest to you and supposedly taking care of you?
Yeah.
That's a great question.
It's like,
Um, you know, I'm fortunate. I have a very, very good support system. Um, my husband is also chronically ill, so his family understands that as well. My family understands, and then when I am around other people, I let them know. So um, I don't really encounter. I guess because I surround myself with people who are supportive rather
mhm,
than allowing myself to be very close to people who would not believe what I was saying is true.
mhm,
So I don't experience that as much. I have been able to get my pain under control in a way that I don't have regular hospital visits anymore. So there's not a the provider issue doesn't happen as often. Um,
Did it
but
used to?
um, I had the one time that I had like a little bit of an issue, um, and this was just last year actually. I went and I got a regular physical, and there was something wrong with the blood. The blood work said that my neutrophils were um, what did it say? It basically said that I had some crazy bacterial infection. But in like the doctor didn't call me. Like I saw it showed up on my chart first. It showed up on my chart. I saw that I had those results and I looked it up and I'm like, what in the this is okay. So I went to urgent care because I was like, what does this mean? Um, and it wasn't until after I had gone to the urgent care and they had scheduled a doctor's appointment with a hematologist for me, did the doctor reach out and said, you should probably go to the ER.
Wow.
Should probably.
Yeah, it was like, oh, well, that's
Wow.
interesting. So, I mean, it turned out to be a lab error, but it was still like, because when I went to the hematologist, they drew blood work while I was there. It was normal. I went back, I think 2 weeks or 4 weeks later, and it was the neutrophils were anyways. My rheumatoid number is still up there, but yeah. So that was like my most recent, like, okay, you should have immediately called me. Instead of, he didn't even call. He put a message in my chart.
Hmm.
I was like, okay. It was a new doctor, so I guess that that might have been part of it. But at the same time, it was like, if you think that somebody has a crazy bacterial infection and they need to go to the ER, you should pick up the phone and call them.
Agreed.
That's just my.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and that is wild. So for me, I so I have a support system. They are a bit challenged, but they do their best. I think it's more of that they are used to my pre-chronic illness, Latoya. Like I was the go-to, and now I'm not so much go-to. It's not much to come to, you know. So it's more of a just they're in denial. 11 years, I don't know when they're going to get it, but so it is disheartening, and I mean, it hurts a little bit, when people that are supposed to be closest to you don't really get it, or seem to not want to get it. However, with lots of therapy, it becomes, you are able to zoom out and realize, you know what, they are them, and that's them. I put them in a specific box, and I move on and build my support system, the one I need. Is it really just that cut and dry? No. There's heartache, tears, frustration, maybe a little cussing, whatever. But but it gets to a point where you really don't, you realize you don't have the time to invest in making anyone believe you. Because there's so many other things to do. There's so much going on that you don't have time to mentally finagle someone else's process.
I love
Yeah.
that. You're, I'm thinking of, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah.
I'm thinking of a former client, and I worked with her probably 10 years ago, and she'd been diagnosed with chronic pain at the age of 7. She wasn't able to go to church anymore because the vibrations of the organ through the floor made her pain go nuts. So long story short, we worked together using pain science and mental fitness, and she got back to the church. She started working at the church. She was really doing pretty well. But then the reason I'm thinking of this now is a couple years ago, she had a really something new, entirely new happened. And she used to go for long walks. I would go with her and another friend. And then her walks got shorter and shorter. And then I was talking to her friend who lives 5 houses down. I'm like, well, how often are you seeing her? And she's like, well, she can only walk 2 or 3 houses. And I'm like, yeah, she can walk 2 or 3 houses and get social connection with you because she's not getting much out there. And so that was it. End of conversation. I literally just got a card from her friend this week saying, thank you for what you told me about our shared friend, because it really helped strengthen my relationship with her. And I was like, huh. So when we take the time to get curious and just accept people where they are, that's where growth happens in the relationship.
I mean, and I think it's to that point, people, you don't know what you don't know. They don't know what they don't know. And getting to a point in where your acceptance of this particular life it is hard. Like it is something no one wants to deal with, but neither is death in Texas. I mean, but so we still have to do it.
Yeah, yeah. And I was thinking, you said, we don't have the time, but uh, having chronic pain and chronic health issues, we also don't have the energy. I think that that's something that I've kind of changed my language a little bit when am having discussions like this with people that I don't know well. It's not that I don't have the time for that. I don't, but I really don't have the energy. Like, you have much more energy to go back and forth with somebody to do this and to do that, and I don't have the energy. And sometimes I find that resonates more with people. It helps them to understand a little bit better that it's not just about time, because we all have the same amount of time. It's about the energy as a resource that we don't have.
And even if you had the energy, is that how you want to spend your mental energy, trying to convince somebody to believe
No.
you? Like, I think that's just a load of bunk.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, what one piece of advice would you give someone who is newly diagnosed with, for sake of this for fibromyalgia? Um, what piece of advice would you give them to help them start?
Mm. I think I would say first to allow themselves to feel.
Mm.
I think a lot of times there are people that don't allow themselves to mourn, if you will, who they were and what changes might have to be made. But go ahead and feel it, but also decide when you are going to do something about it. So it's like twofold. Because no, you're not going to be pre-diagnosis ever again, but feel and let it happen, because if you don't, then it's like not grieving someone that you love that passed away. And you'll never really be able to move forward if you don't do that. That level of acceptance is important, I feel like, anyways, in being able to move forward into what is my life going to look like now? What little steps can I take now to do something that makes me feel like me again, without feeling like I have to be the person that I was before.
Right.
I would say let your story be your own. Be very judicious in what you expose yourself to, because the rabbit holes of horror stories around fibromyalgia almost assuredly will make your symptoms worse.
The
So
truth.
finding
Don't
the
Google.
safe spaces, I guess I'll stop. You've got it.
No, but yeah, but for the sake of them, go ahead and finish what you're saying.
Keep going.
Okay. Is finding those resources that are valuable as opposed to resources that are going to spin you up. Like, my son does not have chronic pain, but every time he has something, he's like, Mom, I have lung cancer. I'm like, you're 20 years old and you only smoked for 2 years. He's like, no, but that's what it said. I'm like, so how much time did you spend with Dr. Google? He's like, a lot. I shouldn't do that. And I'm like, So Dr. Google is not your friend.
No.
And I would also say, I would find somebody who specializes in pain science as opposed to someone who specializes in fibromyalgia, because you're going to have a broader picture of the science instead of just this tunnel vision piece.
I love that. So I want to kind of talk about the joy part, and like, I feel like we really haven't really talked too much about the other side. Like, so let's say, for like you and myself, Janae, like we're we're in it. We're OGs, and like at this point, there's really nothing we couldn't do because we know it's all about accessibility and just switching it up to make it happen.
Mhm.
What is, or rather, how did you get to that point of finding joy again? Yeah.
Mhm. Um, I think it had to do with what I could do, figuring out what I could do, you know. I could still walk, I could still do that, um, relatively okay. So I did that, and just focusing on the things that I could do still, um, that could keep my mind going as well,
Mhm.
not just physical things, but things that could keep me going. I love learning.
Mhm.
So when I was like when I was done being like stuck in the bed all the time, I walked more, and I also found things to fill my mind with that were good and positive.
This may be a good time to talk about your walk and hydrate
Oh, okay.
program or whatever. What's the term you're
Yes.
using? But I love it.
Yeah, hydrate and walk challenge. So back in February, I did a seven day challenge, where the goal was that you drink water, first thing in the morning when you wake up, and you decide how much you want to drink during the day, and then you also take a daily intentional walk, and it's wherever you want to start. And so I encourage them, if you have been stagnant, if you've been sitting and you haven't been doing this at all, please don't say that you're going to do 30 minutes every day. You're not going to do it. You're not going to do it.
No.
You're going to overwhelm yourself and you're going to stop at day 3. Don't do that. Start at 5 minutes. Even if that means, like, I had one person, she just said she parked farther in the parking lot when she went to the store and walked farther to the store. That was her intentional walk. So meeting people where they are. It was interesting though, because I thought that I was just helping them to establish 2 healthy goals, like, hey, I got or healthy habits. But it turned out that the things that were better for them were, they had better digestion,
Mhm.
um, less brain fog,
Yep.
less swelling,
Yep.
more energy, less belly bloat. All of those things ended up being a the byproduct of walking and drinking water every day. And so I was like, you know what? If that worked, I'm going to do it again. So the one thing I did do a post challenge survey because it was the first time that I did it. So I was like, well, what do you think we want would have likes to see? And most of them said that they would have liked for it to be a little bit longer, like maybe 10 days. And so on May 11th, we're having a kickoff meeting to set intentions. And then May 12th, we're having a 10-day challenge. So we're going to go through the weekend and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday as well, so that they can really solidify those 2 habits and get those benefits so that they can keep going with that habit a little bit better on their own. Eventually, it will become a thing after I do it a couple more times where I'll add in maybe a membership where we'll do this all the time. And they can just come when I run a cohort of a 10-day challenge. So, but yeah, that's what I'm doing. It starts next week.
Because I love that. I'll be watching your post and I'm like, oh, like I didn't join this time, but I'm gonna drink my water. Like I have my water, my loaded water. And I
Yeah.
definitely like as far as the you know not trying to jump in and do 30 minutes at one time. That thought is something that I have had my physical therapists have had to drill into me. Because it's always like I'm like I want to go. I want to when I go to a session I want to do the weights the first day out. And they're like no. Like no, like you need to stop passing out first, and then let's get you there. You
Yeah.
know, and then I'm like, I'll try to go out for a walk, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna go at noon. Like it's Alabama in the summer. Why were you doing that?
Well, I also encourage them too, like if it's raining, if it's too hot, don't go outside. There are YouTube videos where you can march in place in your house. You don't have to do it outside. Like, do meet yourself where you are and
Mhm.
be okay with that.
Right.
Be okay with
That
that.
is brilliant. Yeah. And I literally had a client, she started walking 2 minutes and now she sends me pictures hiking in Budapest.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
used
Well,
to
I
sneeze
started.
at that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I started. It's been, I think today would be like day 590 something of an intentional walk, 590 something days of an intentional walk. And then last October, I had some friends that were doing a 5K. So I trained for the 5K.
Mm.
My husband and I both ran the 5K
Love that.
in February. And then I was like, you know what? I am going to be a runner. like, I can do this. And so now I run 3 times a week,
That's
you know?
great.
Yeah. And yeah, so I'll get up early in the morning and just run around here. So, but that started with almost 2 years ago, a daily intentional walk. So it
Mhm.
might take that long
And
before
that's
it comes
okay.
to that, and that's
Mhm.
fine.
Yeah.
You have to start where you are.
Yep.
Right. I know when like before my chronic illness and I was trying to lose weight before that, I would get up and like it at every commercial break, I would get
Mhm.
up and march in place until the show comes back on.
Oh, that's
That's a good
good.
one.
And
I
I would
like
do
it.
that like for like 2 shows. And as I was doing it, I'm like, this is the dumbest thing in the world. But like I
No.
lost like 20 pounds.
Yeah.
I
You know,
just saw if you do 10 squats once an hour in your workday, it's the equivalent of walking 30 minutes. And I counted, it took me 16.9 seconds to do 10 squats.
Wow.
So it's a fraction of the time and the same benefit. That's what this study said.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think
Yep.
the point here is to just start.
Just
Mhm.
start.
Like it doesn't matter how far, how long, just start. And
Yep.
you have to build on something.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So we're almost done. I'm definitely loving this conversation. Um, so I want to talk, Janelle, like, how do you're a business owner. You have chronic illness. Your husband has a chronic illness. Like you're married. Like you have a dog. Like I mean, like how do you stay organized, get organized, and manage all of that when sometimes your days aren't your own?
Oh, that is a great question. Um, well, I think it's important to understand that because my husband is chronically ill, he has a level of understanding that others
Mm,
don't. And on the days that I'm down and he's not, then I can trust
mm,
that he's going to pick up where I
mm,
am not there. And then if we are both down on the same day, I don't know how we got this dog, but she is amazing and she matches our energy. If we cannot get up early enough to take her out on the day, like as early as we normally do, she just stays asleep. Yeah,
That's fascinating.
I
isn't it?
love animals. I love, especially
Yeah.
dogs. I love them. We
She's
don't
like,
deserve
oh, if
them.
you're not up, then that's
That's
okay.
fine.
Yeah, because
Wow.
most days I'll get up early, um, and I'm up. My alarm goes off a little after 6 o'clock because I like to get up. My brain is best in the morning. I will nap every day if I have the opportunity, but my brain just works best in the morning. So I'll get up. I'll do Bible reading, take her for a walk and stuff. So she's normally out before 7 o'clock. But if we're sick, then it's after 8 o'clock, and she has not. She will stay. We don't let her sleep in the room. She sleeps in the living room, and she's completely fine. She just waits, waits
Wow.
on us. So, as far as like cleaning and stuff is concerned, we'd have an understanding. If it's dirty, one of us will clean it.
Right.
There's not a role set here, as far as who's doing what. Like the kitchen and whatever. He cooks most of the time, so it's not like
Nice.
okay. I do cook. I just don't cook that often. He likes to do it, so he does it. So we have a balance where we balance each other out, and so having that helps us to both
Mhm.
thrive because we have an understanding as to what's going to happen when one or the other is not feeling well.
I love that. That's amazing. That is so. Jen, like, do you have anything to add to that, or like any suggestions for someone who may need help in that area of finding balance?
So I love how you're describing pacing, and I love how it's a co-creation between you and your husband, because that can be, we talked about yellow flags early on. Like if you have pressures from your spouse or family members to do things, right? Latoya, you said you were the doer, and 11 years later, they're not quite ready to fully accept that. And so when you don't have what you've created with your husband, Janaea, that can actually flare your symptoms as well.
Mm-hmm.
So this combination of pacing, right? So maybe it takes you an entire week to clean your house because you vacuum one room one day, you clean the counters the next day. That is okay, because the gift is you're not flaring versus pounding it out. I had a client once, she would literally do everything on the weekend, and then she wondered why she was miserable Monday through Thursday night, and then the cycle would begin again. And
Yeah.
when she just introduced pacing, it made a world of difference in her symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
And then like, and if you keep that, pounding it out pace, aside from the stress of doing that, then you're going to start stressing. Like once you start to feel better after 4 or 5 days, and the cleaning day is coming up again,
Yep.
you're going to
Right.
start stressing about being down again.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
Yep.
thank you. The fear of pain is often worse than the pain itself. And I
Yes.
think we can all relate to this, the fear of a first date, the fear of jumping off the high dive. And so that's where understanding pain comes in, and the mental fitness, because the fear can be downright debilitating.
Mm-hmm.
And once we can learn to trust our body and our nervous system and know what it needs to feel calm and safe, that's when that fear starts to abate and we start to have more success.
Yeah.
Love it.
I love that.
So, Jen, I want to ask you a last couple of questions about. So you're mentioning about how managing expectations, and even like pacing, and kind of not getting yourself into that cycle of starting pain or being afraid of pain. So what would be your advice as far as um, potential therapy regimens and or treatments to kind of help a person um, learn the pace, find the pace that helps them, and um, do things to help them build strength and kind of move forward into that life?
Yeah. So Janaea nailed it when she said, start where you are. So start where you are. And in pain neuroscience education, we have 4 main pillars. And we talked about education. And our other second most important is education and exercise. But it's exercise in that sweet spot, right? Doing nothing isn't going to help your nervous system or your symptoms, and doing too much is going to potentially make you worse. So finding that sweet spot of exercise and nudging 1% every day. Can you do a little bit more every day? And if not, that's also okay. And then our other 2 very important strategies that are also based in the science and evidence is sleep. I could talk about sleep for an entire hour. And here's my fascinating fact for you. Are you ready? Are you ready? So it would make sense. Like logically, you think, if I have pain, that's going to impact my sleep. That is not what the research shows. The research shows if you have poor sleep, you are much more likely to have more pain. So
Yes.
sleep is critical. And then having goals. Like Janaea said, can you walk and drink water every day for 7 days? These goals are super important. And then what I love is that then we have the PNE Plus program, which is 22 additional strategies that are all based in science, and you get to choose. Do you want to try yoga? Okay. If you don't, I don't care. Nutrition, laughter, journaling, manual work, body work. There's so many choices, and it comes down to each person and where they want to be and what they want to start with.
I have a little thing about sleep, because my husband has sickle cell, and so a lot of times they'll put them on narcotic medications for the pain, and he went to a pain management specialist a couple of years ago for sickle cell patients, and she changed one of his medications. She changed several of his medications, but the long acting one that she changed, because a lot of times a narcotic, or what a narcotic does, is it cuts off a lot of all of the receptors, and so it affects respiratory, and just other organs. So when she changed that one medication that now only covers and turns off pain receptors, he went from sleeping 3 or 4 hours a night to 6 or 7, and that alone has changed his energy level.
Absolutely. So Janaea, it's really interesting because we have research that when people learn about pain, the pain neuroscience education, they're 1 out of 2 has better function, and 1 out of 3 has less pain. But then when we look at things like gabapentin and SSRIs for pain, 1 out of 6 and 1 out of 7 benefit. So people benefit from learning about pain, just learning about it, and we can measure it with fMRI scans better than some of these drugs without side effects.
Yes.
Yeah. Like sleep is definitely a nemesis of mine, but I am winning the battle every day.
Oh, good.
I am winning the battle every day. So I know, because it's like this last 2 weeks, I've had some pain management treatments, and they were giving me steroids, So I'm like, and then with me having thalassemia, the steroids, I'm a little extra sensitive to them. So sleep has been a little bit tougher this last couple of weeks, but I'm like, you know what? That's fine. we're gonna get through this. So I definitely agree that on the nights that I can get sleep, and then if I can maybe parlay that into a week or 2 of consistently going to sleep at the same time, waking up at the same time or roughly around the same time, and getting consistent 6 or so hours of sleep, which is very rare. I definitely feel better. Mentally, I feel better. Emotionally, I feel better.
Yeah.
And the pain is a little bit better, but it's also, even if it's not better, I have more strength to do my home therapies. I have, that do actually improve the pain, so it is definitely something that we all need to strive for, especially if we're dealing with pain, for sure.
What would it look like, Latoya, if you slept well, or even 80% well for 3 months, and you were able to build on that mental improvement, emotional improvement, and pain improvement? And there's zero cost to getting good sleep.
Exactly. I mean, the thing is, the world would not be ready. like the things I have planned, if I could get consistent energy and actually schedule a day.
Latoya, we are ready. Latoya, we are ready for you to feel good enough to shock the world.
Well, we're gonna get there, because I'm telling you, it's like my family, they've always called me 10, because like I'm always like up here, like this is let's go, and so they're like, when you're like down, they're like, you're down, like this is not right, but when I am, let out the gate, it's like, what is happening? So absolutely, I am definitely looking for that day.
So can you drive your car in 5th gear all the time?
No.
No. But that's what you're trying to do. I say with
Mm.
utter kindness and compassion.
I get it. And it is definitely a work in progress. It's
Yeah.
definitely a work in
Absolutely.
progress.
Absolutely. And you keep learning and you're striving to learn more. And you've got this whole great opportunity to reach a broader community who also learns from you. So I think that's awesome.
Thank you so much. So I want to give Jen a little bit more time to talk about I Rise for Me, and what that is, how you got into it, and how your program can potentially help those with chronic pain.
Great. Well, I will say then if anybody wants a, well, this is going to be, nope, cancel that. I think that you're wrong date. We're just going to leave it there.
Okay.
I do have a 6 month, it's a mix of online coaching and self paced work called Pain to Gain. It does include the 7 week mental fitness course because that's such an important foundation for helping with chronic pain. And I do one on one work. I can see people one on one virtually. If anybody is in Northern Virginia, I can see them that way. But I'm also, if people are just curious about the mental fitness piece, you can reach out to me. I will send you the saboteur assessment if
Yes,
people are
please.
interested. That's going to give you an idea of how strongly is the judge or the avoider or whatever that might be. So mostly that's what I'm doing. And I'm speaking at different conferences and podcasts. So if anybody is interested in having a speaker on pain, mental fitness, stress, resilience, sleep, here we go.
Absolutely,
That's cool.
absolutely. So let's see. Where are we at? So, Janaea, what would be your message? Your elevator pitch or your one liner to someone who's in chronic pain. They've just been diagnosed and they're just in the throes of that. What would be the thing you would tell them to help them start?
Yeah. Just like I said before, you have to start where you are. Take that assessment and be okay with where you are now. And like we said, that exponential growth will be okay. And it's okay to feel like you're not doing anything when you first start. If you start very small, it's fine and it's good. You need to start where you're very small, because you're not the person that you were before. So it's okay, to start where you are. And I guess that's something else we haven't really mentioned is to
Mhm.
not compare yourself to other people,
Mm,
and what people even with or without your illness, don't compare yourself to them, because I think you said, at the very beginning, especially those with fibromyalgia, there are varying levels of it.
mhm.
There are people like me who can do that exponential work and get up to running a 5K, and then there are others that just can't. So
Mhm.
do not compare yourself to others that either do or don't have, your illness. Be okay with where
Right.
you are and who you are.
Exactly. I was talking to someone else in another group, and she has like PCOS, I think it is, and
Hmm.
she made the comment, well, I'm sure my pain is nothing like yours, so I can't really complain. I'm like, I'm like, let's stop right now. Like, pain is pain, and sure, it may not be a stub to toe pain, but if it's something you deal with daily, and if it's something that affects your life from the way you want to live, like, there is no bar of saying, well, no, this person has this level of pain and therefore they're better or worse off than any other person. Like, that's not a thing. People who don't get it may try to make it a thing,
Hmm.
but it's not. Yeah. So, Jen, what do you have for that?
I'm going to go back to when I said pain is not a life sentence. Pain is normal. living in pain is not. And we have the science to help people find a different, better place. The challenge we have is that most clinicians are still operating on a framework from 300 or 400 years ago, Rene Descartes. And so get curious, find a provider who is up to date on how pain works to help you as an individual.
Exactly. Yeah, like definitely, don't accept the status quo. If you feel something is off or something is not quite a fit for you, ask for a second opinion, third, fourth opinion, what have you. Um, and don't just settle because it's your life. It is indeed your life.
It is indeed
And you deserve to live the best possible life. It may look very different than when you were 16 and you write in the journal, and when I grow up, I'm going to be this. It may not be that, but that doesn't mean you can't make it great. Like that doesn't, you can still be as awesome as you want to be.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love this. I could literally talk forever about this because there are so many areas we have not touched on. But I want to thank you ladies for coming and sharing with us. I'm definitely going to put both of you guys' information in the description. And so that way, if they want to take any of your assessments or join any of your challenges, they can do that. Any final words from anything you guys want to say?
First, thank you for having me. I don't think I said that. But yeah, just for anybody that's listening, no matter what your chronic illness may be, just know that you are you, and wherever you are right now is okay. But strive to do a little bit more, even if it's just a 3-minute walk, a 2-minute walk, whatever. Meet yourself where you are, and don't compare yourself to others.
I too would like to thank you for the opportunity, and it's great to meet you too, also, Janaea. My message is that a symptom is not a symptom; it is an invitation to someone's story. And please be judicious about finding clinicians who are going to listen to your story.
Okay, I can't. That's all I got.
Yeah, that's like
exactly. I'm like, well, dang. Didn't need me here. But so with that, butterflies. See you later.